So guys, tonight we're at the Georgetown Marriott Hotel for a talk hosted by the University of Guyana. This is, I think, number 10 or number 11 in the Turkine Talks.
Oh, this is my day. I'm ready to take it on, come what may.
And it's going to be on the environment and renewable energy. So I'm going to give you some feedback on what I think is going on in the discussion of renewable energy in Guyana. This is the auditorium. This is Salon A, B, and C of the Marriott Hotel. So yeah, I'm going to give you some feedback on the level of discussion, the level of debate that is ongoing in renewable energy and the environment here in Guyana. And then I'll give you my my perspective or my point of view. See, I think what is missing from a lot of these debates, a lot of these talks, is the sell-through, right? You can talk about the technology that makes renewable energy accessible, and you can talk about the cost and how widespread its use is. But I think what is most appealing in the talk about renewable energy is the sell-through. Is in fact what the benefits down the line are, and I think the most important benefit most people fail to highlight is peace and prosperity. Because when you're not worried about where your energy comes from or how much energy that is, your adequacy of your energy, there will be less competition for energy resources, oil in particular, and the result should automatically be peace. So we should have a peaceful world if we become more clean energy dependent, if we convert to clean energy. And so that is what I'm waiting for. That is the kind of argument that I'm looking for. I still haven't heard it yet. I'm hoping that tonight we can get some discussion in that direction. Here's my initial take. There is an audience of about maybe 100 people, and we'll see how many eventually turn out. And I'll give you some updates throughout the presentation and then my feedback at the end of it. So stay tuned.
So we're really delighted to welcome you here, that you made the choice to come and listen to Pavan and to participate in another conversation about Guyana's future as a big economy. Without saying much else, because we are starting late, it gives me pleasure now to ask
and the lifestyles of all people, leaving no one alone, leaving no one by the wayside. But if you're doing that, then how can you say that you have development if it is not sustainable? If you have social equity, then it means you must be carrying everyone with you. If you have ecological security, only then can you be sustainable. If you have environmental risk managed, only then can you be moving ahead. Otherwise, you're just creating more risks, which will come and bite yourself or your children, through climate, through poisonous chemicals, and so on and so forth. So, to me, the only development is sustainable development. And time and again, and I still have arguments with some economists who somehow feel that, but there must be a trade-off between development and environment. And I'm saying, how? Explain to me. Give me some examples. And then when they can't, I give them about 10 examples of the opposite. So I usually win those arguments. Because I have more data on my fingertips, and you'll see some of those today. So there are some assumptions which keep coming up again and again in different forums, and I like to challenge them because I'm not seeing evidence. I'm at heart still a physicist, not an economist. In economics, you have theory and you have facts. And if the facts don't comply with the theory, you throw away the facts. In physics, you can't do that. You're not allowed to do that. You have to, if you have a theory and there's even one experiment that doesn't agree with it, you have to throw out theory. Gosh, that's terrible, right? But that's what you need to do. That one of the principles actually says develop human resources, which is basically about developing human capital. Human capital is about the health and the knowledge and and the skills in the individual that enable that individual to earn incomes and be and generate well-being in the future. So please remember, the term capital is an economic metaphor for value. It is not the same as value. It's a metaphor. So when you say that there is human capital development, what you're saying is that human beings are learning, they are healthier, and they are able to assimilate new skills, generate incomes. The present value of those incomes is wealth, and that's what you call capital. That actually human capital is pretty deeply embedded at the very heart of, how many is it? 7 of the design principles of the green economy. 7 out of 11 is not a bad score. And this is why human capital actually is central to development and to sustainable development. And we need very little evidence of that other than to look at the results of the United Nations report called Inclusive Wealth. Inclusive wealth is a way of looking beyond GDP. What it means is measuring natural capital, human capital, as well as physical produced capital, and trying to see how much on average the capital available per person has increased in the country, which means what's the net increase in the availability of wealth per capita in the country. And that's basically a way of measuring inclusive wealth. And what you see is if you look at the single largest capital category, so these are the per capita wealth estimates of all these countries, Japan, US, Canada, Norway, Australia, etc., all the way Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, etc. You should not surprise you to see that Saudi Arabia has a huge bar here of natural capital. That's because oil is also natural capital. And there's living natural capital, biodiversity ecosystems, there's dead natural capital like oil, minerals, and so on. That's all natural capital. It should also not surprise you to see that Japan, the US, have got very significant human capital because skills development is very high, earnings are high generally there, and of course they also have high physical capital. Measured in this way, you can see that actually the richest nation in this sense is Japan, because they have the highest per capita human capital. Australia has high natural capital if you look at the sheer land availability, agricultural land and natural areas, so that's the reason why that number is big. So you can get an intuitive sense on what this capital's approach is about. It's about measuring overall wealth, but measuring it in all its dimensions: human, natural, social, and physical as well. There are some success stories, so let's look at these. I mean, you've seen everyone's heard of Silicon Valley, that's kind of an infotech success story, which was about developing human capital. This is all about people. This is developing really smart people, attracting them mostly from India and places like that, and getting the best of our people and landing up in California. We go to there, I mean, this morning I was talking about Andhra Pradesh, a state, you and a few others were there. And Andhra Pradesh also is a state which provides some of the best information technology talent. So 1 in 4 Silicon Valley infotech experts is Indian, and 1 in 4 of those Indians is from Andhra Pradesh. So can you imagine one state in India is basically providing 1/16 of the total human capital of Silicon Valley. Then India, of course, has its own experiment, which is in Bangalore and Hyderabad as well, information tech, IT services basically, not so much new tech, but rather services. And that's an amazing success story of human capital development. Singapore has its own success story. This is basically, Singapore has become literally the Switzerland of the East by developing and attracting human capital, which is working on finance, on investment. So they've become a wealth management hub for people sitting in Asia in that time zone. Manaus in Brazil is an interesting example, again, a human capital development story. Electronics manufacturing. They began local, in fact I'm going to talk about that a bit more. But all of these success stories that I mentioned have a few common themes. In each case, some universities or some policies enable people to develop skills. Manaus is, you can see it's a large city, the capital of Amazonas. Manaus is at this point 1,450 kilometers from the Atlantic Ocean. It is that far inland. It used to be a port which was there to export timber and rubber. This was the history of Manaus. The labor in Manaus was basically, unskilled labor. How much skill you need to go chop a tree and basically working in a port, carting stuff and so on. So these were the skills there. The state of Manaus got an approval from the government of Brazil to start an export processing zone out here, a PIM, a Pole Industrial Manaus. And the idea was to give incentives to industry to set up manufacturing out there. In the middle of the world's biggest rainforest, you've got a little city of 150,000 people which wants to get big. And what does it do? It sets up a manufacturing hub in the middle of the world's rainforest. How closely connected to the rest of the world? Nearly 1,450 kilometers from the sea. And of course, it had an airport and that was what. And it intelligently decided manufacturing of electronics because it saw that electronics was a happening space. So it started manufacturing these motherboards. Initially, the motherboards were this big, they became smaller, they became cell phone boards. But basically, the manufacture, not the chip, but everything else on which the chip goes. And they were the experts in that. They would assemble electronics from Brazil, then for Latin America, and a lot of export around to the world. So this Pole Industrial PIM, as it's called, the Industrial Pole of Manaus, was a free trade zone, zero import and export taxes. And that enabled and attracted the industries to invest there. And of course, when you begin, then other things also. But the key thing was the electronics industry, which was the engine of the development of Manaus. And gradually, this is what began to happen. A city of just 150,000 people around the time, 1965 is when they introduced that group. That grew gradually to a city of, now it is 2 million people. It's still a large part of the 3.4 million people that are there, or 3.5 million people in the state of Amazonas. And because their employment is not timber and rubber and soya and beef and so on and so forth, that's the reason why the Amazonas rainforest is still intact.
So guys, let me sign out here and now from the Marriott Hotel. So this was a very informative discussion, and I'm going to give you a summary of it later on, but the most important take-home point is in fact that the future is in solar energy, in solar power, and most of the other renewable sources of energy have externalities that can be negative, but solar seems to have the least negative impact on society. So that's the way we're going to go. Now, if you want to see more content like this, click like and subscribe. In the comments below, tell me what you think about the future of solar power in Guyana and in your neck of the woods. And later!